Welcome to ICAN's daily updates from the second meeting of states parties to the UN Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Today is a big day. In the morning, the state parties and observers met in the Trusteeship Council here in the UN to the official opening of the second state part meetings. We heard from the president of the meeting, Juan Ramón de la Fuente. We heard from Ms. Izumi Nakamitsu, the High Representative for Disarmament Affairs. She addressed the meeting on behalf of the UN Secretary General, saying, "The TPNW states parties have no intention of resting on their laurels." Our own Executive Director, Melissa Park, addressed the state parties, ending with, "Every species will be harmed in a nuclear war. Only one species can stop it." We also heard a very strong testimony from the nuclear bomb survivor and Secretary General of the Japanese Council of A and H bomb survivors, Suechi Kido. There were a lot of side events focusing on the harm caused by nuclear weapons. We had a side event focusing on Korean nuclear bomb victims. The Mayors for Peace hold a side event called Voices of Civil Society, featuring Hibakusha. What a day it has been. But the day is still young here in New York. It's 5 p.m. and the atmosphere inside the UN building is palpable. So much optimism, excitement, and commitment to a world without nuclear weapons. While diplomats and civil society are busy inside the Trusteeship Council, parliamentarians from all over the world have met to share the necessary information and network to advancing the TPNW in their respective countries. If you want to hear more about the Parliamentarian Conference, then tune in tomorrow. Now we will hear from our rooming reporter, Emma Pike.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. This is Emma for MSP-TV, and I'm here in New York at the UN, of course, for the second meeting of states parties to the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Now, I originally was going to be reporting to you from the opening session because it is almost 11:30 a.m. here. However, despite being in line for about 2.5 hours now, we still haven't gotten our badges. And so we have missed the opening session, but that's okay because we're about to get our badges now. We are still in line. Hi, everyone. Hey. We got our passes. Now we have to go through security, and at long last, we will be inside. All right, folks, at long last, we are inside. What is it, 3.5 hours later? We're about to head in. Okay. So although we weren't able to attend the opening session because there were such long queues to get our passes, we did hear some highlights. So among the addresses at the opening session was Izumi Nakamitsu, who's the UN High Representative for Disarmament Affairs. And speaking on behalf of the UN Secretary General, she said this: TPNW, so Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, states parties have no intention of resting on their laurels. In addition, delegates also heard from Melissa Park, who is, of course, the Executive Director of ICAN. She reminds us that, quote, "Every species will be harmed in nuclear war. Only one species can stop it." That, of course, we can eliminate nuclear weapons, and that the Nuclear Ban Treaty, or the TPNW, is our best hope of achieving real progress in eradicating them. Delegates also heard from a representative of the ICRC, the International Committee of the Red Cross, as well as the Secretary General of the Nihon Hidankyo, who is himself a survivor of the bombing of Nagasaki and represented all of the victims of nuclear bombings. So now I'm about to head into one of the side events, which you can see the sign for behind me. It is hosted by Kiribati and Kazakhstan, and it's on the positive obligations of the TPNW. So these are things like environmental remediation and assistance to victims of nuclear explosions and nuclear testing. So I'm going to head in now, and I'll talk to you later. All right, back to you, Tuva.
Thank you so much, Emma. Lots of ICAN campaigners are here in the UN. Earlier, we met up with Suzuka Nakamura.
Hi, I'm Suzuka Nakamura from No Nukes Tokyo, Japan. I'm mainly working for Japanese government to join TPNW and also as an observer for this MSP, which was not able for this time. But here in second MSP, I'm working with hibakusha and youth from all over the world to encourage Japanese government to join in the future.
I'm here with ICAN's project coordinator for the second MSP, Susi Snyder. Susi, thank you for being here. What does it mean to be the project coordinator for the second MSP?
Oh, it is incredible. Let me tell you, Tuva, it means that I get to experience and contact all of the people putting together some 63, 65 different events this week. And that's just what's happening here in New York. It means that I've gotten to work with so many stakeholders, so many rights holders who are really concerned about nuclear weapons and who want to bring their energy and their resolve to eliminate them to this meeting of states parties. When we talk about coordinating projects like this, it means bringing together everything from the people who are putting together some coffee to those who are creating art exhibitions featuring more than 200 artists, and all of them with energy and effort to dedicate to the end of nuclear weapons. And I get to kind of be at the center of it like a spider in the web and just try to help everybody be the best they can be and bring their best here to New York and here to the second meeting of states parties.
Sounds amazing. Imagine with all that planning and effort put into it. What's your expectations for the week we have ahead of us?
Well, I think one thing that I'm confident is that we are seeing a true demonstration of nuclear disarmament in action. And while we're not dismantling the weapons here in New York City, because hopefully there aren't any, what we're doing is we're creating a world where a world without nuclear weapons is something we can see, we can touch, we can feel. Because unless we can imagine it, we can never live it. And that's what part of the blueprint for disarmament is about. And that blueprint we started in Vienna and we're building on here in New York. And it's a way that we are making sure that anything to do with nuclear weapons is completely illegitimate. And we won't get rid of the weapons until that is the case. So my expectation this week is that we are going to help end nuclear weapons by bringing the stigma against these weapons to an all-time high.
It's a big task, but with all those amazing campaigners and people putting their effort into it, I think it's possible. This afternoon, the main focus in the plenary session has been on the humanitarian consequences of nuclear weapons. We've heard from survivors, but also from scientists doing research on the topic. And for me, it's quite a symbolic thing that's like the first day of the meeting. What's the connection?
Well, here's the thing. 10 years ago, in Norway, for the first time ever, governments came together to talk about nuclear weapons, what nuclear weapons do to people and to the environment. 10 years ago, that's not a long time. And that was the very first time it ever happened. Because of that conversation, we have a treaty that comprehensively prohibits these weapons. So when we talk about the humanitarian consequences, we're going back to the root of the treaty. We're going back to the reason for this treaty, because these weapons are so horrible. It's unacceptable for anyone to ever have them. And once you understand what they do, you can make no other decision than that. So today's conversation to focus on the humanitarian consequences, to focus on the new research about what would happen in the world if there were nuclear war, how it affects everyone, not just any country that might have the weapons, but every single living being would be impacted, which means every single living being has a right to say no. And so that's what we're doing. That's why it is so significant that this meeting of states parties kicked off with a return to its roots on the humanitarian consequences.
Thank you so much. I hope we bring with us that message that every single human being has the right to say no. Thank you so much for being here with us, Susi, in what has to be a very, very busy week for you.
It's my great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for following MSP-TV. Here in New York, the day is still young, as I said earlier. At 6 p.m., the Austrian ambassador and president of the first meeting of states parties, Alexander Clement, together with ICAN's director, Melissa Park, and artist Pedro Reis, opened the Artist Against the Bomb exhibition. You can look at their posters on www.artistagainstthebomb.org. At 7:30, the New Manhattan Project, a concept for nuclear abolition, will guide us through a journey to discover the nuclear legacy that New York claims. If you want a complete overview of our side events, which of those that are actually available online, then check out www.ican.org/2MSP_events, and you will get all the information. MSP-TV is back tomorrow with the latest updates from what's going on here in New York. Tomorrow we will hear from the campaigners rally in the morning, from parliamentarians, and from the youth MSP. Don't miss it. Tune in at 11 a.m. or 5 p.m. Eastern Time. See you there.